Okay, so next will be the decision analysis. So let's start with decision tables, and let's have, for example, four alternatives, and there are around three nature states, and the objective is to maximize profits, and we have this. So for example, let's have this decision analysis that makes us decide on, for example, right, on what on which business to set up after college. For example, alternative one will be example starting a retail store, right? The second alternative will be uh, setting up a computer shop, right? Third alternative will be doing selling insurance, for example. And then fourth will be buy and sell of cars, for example, or used cars, right? So, so these are your alternatives. You have to define your state 1, state 2, and state 3. Usually, state 1 will be a a a low market or market that is not favorable. So let's have this as unfavorable market scenario. All right, so just put unfavorable, and then state number 2 will be a neutral scenario, while state number 3 will be a favorable market scenario. And let's also encode probabilities. By the way, you can still add scenarios there, right? You can have, for example, 5 scenarios here, very unfavorable, favorable, and all that. But the most important thing here is to encode the probabilities of that market scenario from happening. So, for example, if the unfavorable market scenario would come up around 20% of the time, and usually the neutral will be a huge chunk of it, and the favorable market scenario is also maybe around 20-25%. So this usually the favorable and the unfavorable market scenario, usually they don't um, the values don't differ so much. So usually we do it, we have the same probability, zero point 0.2 and zero point 0.2, so that leaves you with around zero point 0.6. Don't worry if you don't correctly do your math properly, because it will warn you if it doesn't add up to 100%. So for example, I made a mistake by putting 80% for neutral. Okay, later on it will show that it doesn't add up. Okay, so this is the one that I was telling you. The probability sum to 1.2, they must either sum 1 or each must be 0, in which case they will be ignored. So since we are over by zero point 0.2, let's correct this and make it zero point 0.6. So essentially what we're trying to say here is that unfavorable market scenario happens 20% of the time, neutral scenario 60% of the time, while favorable scenario is around 20% of the time also. So here, in the zeros here, the bunches of zeros here, we are now going to encode what will be your benefit in setting up a retail store in an unfavorable market. So for example, in a retail store, and this has to be a product of research in real life. So let's just do it randomly today. So retail store, for example, opening up a retail store in an unfavorable market, which will only give you around 2,000 pesos a month income, for example, net income. In a neutral scenario, maybe a little higher, 4,000. On a favorable scenario, maybe it can go up to around 8,000 pesos a month, right? Computer shop. In an unfavorable scenario, maybe the computer shop will give you around 5,000 pesos. In a neutral scenario, maybe around 10,000 pesos. Sorry about that. 10,000 pesos. And the favorable scenario will be around maybe 20,000 pesos a month. All right. So selling insurance, maybe in an unfavorable market, you will lose money. You will have a negative profit. The reason being, of course, you are going to the office, you're going to finance your transportation and all that. Maybe you lose money, maybe just a little bit, right? So maybe you lose around 2,000 pesos per month on a neutral scenario. Maybe you will earn a little higher than this, so maybe around 12,000. On a favorable scenario, maybe you will earn as high as 40,000 pesos a month. Buying and selling of used cars, there's no income. If it's an unfavorable market, then maybe you lose money, but maybe not so much. So maybe around 5,000 pesos. On a neutral scenario, maybe you earn around 20,000 pesos. On a favorable scenario, maybe you will get around 60, even 100,000 pesos a month. Let's have this, because the kicker here is that let's do this negative 10,000. So the kicker here is that when you do buying and selling used cars, you stand to lose 10,000 pesos if it's an unfavorable market. Whereas if you do a retail store, whether it's unfavorable market or a neutral market or favorable market, it's okay. I mean, you start earning. So with this kind of data before you, you don't know which one to choose, right? Of course, if it's a favorable market, you would choose immediately buying and selling of cars. But that doesn't happen all the time, right? So you need the POM QM in order to do the decision table for you. Now there's one more thing here that you will see, and this is the Horwich Alpha. The Horwich Alpha is maybe around the percent. How sure are you on the probabilities that you encoded, right? So if you put point 1 and point 2 and all that, then you are actually saying that this is the scenario of the market, right? This is how confident you are of your data. Let's just put it as 0 and let the decision table, the decision analysis, uh, you know, choose which alternative is best. But again, Hurwich Alpha tells you how confident you are with the data. So it's either you put it at 0, it will be ignored. You put it at 1, that means it is really correct. Or you put it at 0.5 because that's how sure you are. It's a 50-50 thing. So let's start with just putting it at 0. And when you solve, you will have scenarios like this one. Okay? So what does this tell you? Remember that analysis is also contained below. Here, if we read this, it says the maximum expected monetary value is 30,000 given by buying and selling of used cars. That is the maximum expected monetary value. Okay, it more or less computes for the scenarios of the market and how what is the probability of having a neutral market, a favorable market, or unfavorable market. So for example, with with a, if we play average and let the expected monetary value play average on us, we will choose buying and selling of used cars because it is the highest profit at 30,000. On the second column, we have the row min. Row min means it's a maximin. Maximin is 5,000. If you will notice, maximin is what? It is the highest value, uh, the highest value on a minimum result. So, for example, let's look at that from this. If it's unfavorable, if the market is unfavorable, then the highest minimum will be computer shop. So if the unfavorable market really occurs, the best choice we have is the computer shop at 5,000 pesos because it has the highest row min. On the other hand, if we are so lucky and the market is so agreeable to us, Then we will choose the maximum. The raw max will be 100,000 and it is given by buying and selling of cars. It is here that you see it, right? Now, of course, these are extremes. The EMV is at the middle, 50%, usually the median point, while Romin will be an absolute unfavorable market. On the other hand, Romax is an absolute aggressive market or confident of what the market is going on, how the market is going about. So if we put it at zero point 0.5, and this is where um, we will put it, and you will see that it's still the same. So at zero point 0.5, or which alpha is zero point 0.5, the best EV, if we play averages, it will choose buying and selling of used cars. If we will choose an unfavorable market, it will choose 5,000 pesos, which is for the computer shop. And if we are aggressive, we will choose the 100,000, which is also buying and selling of used cars. And the Horwich Alpha at 50%, it says here, at 50%, the best scenario will be buying and selling of used cars. And the expected monetary value is not 30,000 anymore, but it's 45,000. So that's it for decision table. Of course, you still have other things there, perfect information, regret. Okay, so if we look at regret or opportunity loss, then you will see here that the minimax regret, so the minimum opportunity cost is the buying and selling of used cars. So still, it points out to the buying and selling of used cars because the maximum regret, will be in an unfavorable market and you get 15,000. That's the highest minimum, the maximum regret, the highest maximum regret that you will. The lowest maximum regret that you will have, because the highest maximum regret for retail store is 92,000. Okay, that will be the regret of the favorable regret. On the other hand, maximum regret for computer shop is 80,000. For selling insurance is 60,000. For the regret of buying and selling of used cars, if you choose it, is of course only 15,000. So we choose that one, and that is our opportunity cost, 15,000. All right, so that's it. Thank you very much.